Good morning, guys, and welcome back to Revolution. And so we are going to look at Papyri 1. So this is a papyrus manuscript that was found, and it's dated to around 200. And so late 2nd century, early 3rd century. So this contains Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 to 9, verses 12, and verse 14 to 20. And so this was discovered in Egypt. It is now sitting in the University of Oxford's Slacker Library. And so we are going to look and examine what this manuscript is, what it says, and we want to go through and just make sure that the claims about this manuscript are true. Because what I found recently, when someone from the King James Bible Research Council did a video on P52, and so I did a video pretty much, I think it was the next day, sort of explaining how it doesn't really back up the Textus Receptus. And in fact, the point that he made seemed invalid because it actually backed up the reading of Westcott and Hort. And so I was just saying, look, we're just got to be careful when it comes to examining biblical documents, examining source material, that we're not just making claims and we don't have the goods to back it up. That's ridiculous. And I think the King James Bible Research Council, their videos pop into my feed every now and then. I've interviewed Phil Stringer. There are a bunch of those guys contact me and say hi, and I watched your video on this and I enjoyed it, etc. But I think at the end of the day, regardless of what the group is, regardless of Dan Hafley and debates and all the rest of it, what they've really got to do is examine everything. And I think one thing that makes an organization good is when people within it critique what's being said within the organization, because of course we all make mistakes. We all jump the gun. We all say something that we shouldn't have, and we have to go back and go, well, sorry, I was wrong. There's new evidence. Let's move on. And I think going through the source documentation, just looking at things carefully, I think there's a lot of weight in someone's opinion when they're able to be critiqued, to put their work in front of 100 other people, and they're all examining it, looking at it. And so I sort of felt like some of those videos that were coming out with P52, and I think Dwayne Green's moved on to some of these other ones. He did a similar video that what I did on P52. And then I think it was P60, and he's gone on to other ones. And so just pointing out some of the inconsistencies. And so some of it's true, some of it's not. And so we've just got to be very careful. And if we are going to say something that is on the borderline, we've got to let people know that. We can't just bolster evidence for our side, or else people are going to pick that to pieces, and they're going to use that as an excuse to not tune into anything else that's being said. And so anyway, I just sort of mentioned that just from the get-go. But I was listening to all sorts of different things during the week, and one thing that came up was there is an air of sophistication when it comes to people being able to look at the papyri. Now, James White, he pulls this card out and basically says, if you don't know about the papyri, or you can't read the papyri or whatever, then you don't know anything about textual criticism. And then he's come out a few years later, like, forget everything. It's a CBGM. If you don't know about that, and it just so happens to be the thing that he's studying at the time. If you don't know about it, if you don't know his little niche thing, you're an idiot. And so what I've found is there is a lot of mystical type of interpretation when it comes to the papyri. And there are several types of sciences that come along with papyri. archaeology, there's the dating of manuscripts, there's deciphering what it's saying, even just being able to look at the handwriting. But what you'll see in the academy is people who are majority text, they will many times a manuscript that's backing up the last 12 verses of Mark or the woman caught in adultery. Someone like Maurice Robinson, he will talk about the size of letters, like James Snapp Jr. They'll talk about the size of letters, and they'll say, well, we think the woman caught in adultery probably is in this manuscript because we've worked it out. Where when you get to the critical text side, they're saying, well, we don't think it is in that manuscript because we've worked it out. And so oftentimes you're just trusting in a scholar. And so hopefully what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to look at the papyri. I'm going to go through as many as I possibly can without being too tiresome. Now, what I usually have a tendency of doing, I have these massive projects. I start them, I go for a while, and then I fizz out. But hopefully, as we go through this, maybe it'll pick up speed, a bit of momentum. People will become interested in this. And so what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to examine what is actually written in this document, how this has been portrayed to the public, what are the dating methods of this? Because I've heard people say, well, this has been carbon dated. I'm not sure about that. They have dated it, but I'm not sure if that's just because it looks old or the handwriting is old. So we want to go through all that type of documentation. And so I've got an article here on my website on Papyri 1. Now, oftentimes I'm just trying to mirror what they've got on Wikipedia. And if there is any other interesting information, I will add it to it. And so this is pretty much the same as the Wikipedia page, but I do have a little bit of extra information on the Oxyrhynchus Papyri, Papyri 1. And so we're going to go through that. We're going to quickly read through that. And I sort of want to keep my finger on the pulse when it comes to papyri manuscripts, because as I said, people make out that they have some sort of magic potion when it comes to knowing about the papyri. Basically, my personal understanding or my personal presupposition as I'm coming into this, I've read, Papyri 1, I've looked at lots of papyri, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure what they are. I know they're biblical manuscripts. I know that they are claimed to be early. They're claimed to be an early attestation that apologists love to use to say, look how young the evidence for Christianity is and for the writings of Christianity. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure that they're that old. And I come to this with my mindset. I come to this going, this needs to be properly dated. This needs to be examined. There needs to be also the question, is this a forgery? Of any biblical document that we look at, that should be the first thing that we're looking at. Is this a fake? Is this a forgery? Is there something nefarious happening here? If not, then where do we put this in history? How has it been dated? Who's dated it to what? And is there a bias in how people are reading these manuscripts? Because oftentimes people have put papyri into, oh, well, that reads and that has Alexandrian readings. But as we'll see, even with this papyri, Hermann Hoskier looked at it and said, no, it doesn't match up with Vaticanus. And that was one of the claims. And the thing is with Vaticanus, basically, even Jan Kranz, many people who have examined the history of Vaticanus really didn't have much of a history until Erasmus. And that proves to you that the main manuscript behind the NA 28 edition basically was unknown up until Erasmus, and he rejected it. And so it's quite amazing that what we see in history is people trying to align manuscripts with Vaticanus and to sort of give credibility to Vaticanus. And so I see this all the time, like say with archaic Mark. Well, one of the reasons why they loved that, it was a 13th century Gospel of Mark that was proven to be a forgery when they examined it and found Prussian blue ink in it. Now that was considered having Vaticanus readings in it. So they were very excited about that. Why would they get excited about this? Because it's like you've got Vaticanus. It's like a standalone, weird, strange manuscript. And if something is like it, people get all excited about that. And so that's why you have, James White getting all excited about Vaticanus having this clean transmission to P75, or having an earlier document that's like a Q document sort of thing. No one knows what it is, but apparently it's related to Vaticanus and it's related to P75. But when you examine the claims that are being made, when you have 78% difference in the document, it is considered not to be related. Now, Vaticanus and P75 are 79. So it's just scrapes over the line. And you think, who's making these claims? Like, why isn't it 80? It's like they've pushed back, the likelihood of these being related. They push that right back to the border and gone, they're related. It just crosses over the line. James White makes announcements like there's a clean transmission. See, these are related documents, goes around using this as his new apologetic for Christianity. But anyone who's thinking can just pull holes in all that. And so that's the problem is I'm trying to basically, what I see is going to happen. There's going to be a lot of damage control with all that's been said in the last 150 years about, Westcott and Horde, about papyri, and especially as the sciences get better, as the ability to date things gets more accurate, I think a lot of these biblical manuscripts are just going to disappear. They're going to become just curiosities of history that are proven to be forgeries. And so it wouldn't surprise me that this is a fake, but we're going to examine it as if it's not a fake. We're going to give the benefit of the doubt, but I'm just letting you know my presuppositions coming into this. What I see is a huge bias, or someone else's presupposition is that this has got to back up Vaticanus. This has got to back up the Westcott and Hort text. This has got to back up the Alexandrian type manuscripts. And when you've got a huge push for that, when someone finds a bone somewhere and it could back up the theory of evolution, a lot of people will overlook the facts, the real facts, and they'll just say, yeah, that's definitely half human, half primate. And we see that the sciences do this. They have bias. And so I'll just check and see who's in the house. So we have Helg. He's saying, oh, nice. P1, have to start somewhere. Yes. Following Truth. Is it correct that P1 does not have a subscription title on it? It has the letter alpha at the top. So I'll just crack this open. So here we have a nice picture of it. So it has the letter alpha. So I guess it doesn't say Matthew. There's actually a little bit of something there, which is interesting. I'm not sure if that's just from the papyri, like a little bit of a stain, but it does look like a little bit of ink. Now, one thing that we can do, and I'm going to do this right now, I'm going to crack open my Adobe Illustrator because we can, in Adobe Illustrator, it's quite interesting. You can invert the colors. You can cause the colors to be glowing. It picks certain elements of the manuscript, like sometimes it only highlights just the ink. Dark blotches can be faded out, and so you can read the manuscript in a different light, so to speak. And so I'm just going to copy and paste this image into Adobe. Okay, so here we go. Okay, let's just put it down here. Actually, I'll move it away from the middle square there, so we don't have any extra lines. Now, if I go to Effects Gallery, okay, we can, so you can see how beneficial this is, even just with putting on like something like neon glow. We'll just go through some of these glowing edges. Even the glowing edges, as daggy as that is, it's showing where there's text. And that's why I was looking at this. That does look like a little bit of a text, doesn't it? Looks like a bit of a upsilon with 2 dots and a line above it, which is interesting. And it's sort of coming up in the same type of ink blotch as the alpha. So these are things I want to look at. I want to go through and examine and see if they've actually written this down properly, because what I'm discovering is that it's not just the King James Bible Research Council guys who are sort of looking through this stuff. A lot of the critical text guys, I just don't trust the critical text guys to be honest with their evaluation. Now, some of them I do, but there are people who have such a barrow to push. They read into anything that anything will come against the Textus Receptus. I believe there are people out there who just want to attack the Textus Receptus. And so they will say, no, that letter is not this, it's that, with just as much bias as anyone else on any other side. And so what I'm basically saying is there are people on the King James side who have bias. There are people on the critical text side who have bias. There are people on the majority text side who have bias. And so hopefully I'm not going to be biased. And at the end of the day, regardless, this doesn't really change that much to me. If this is a fake, it's like, okay, it's a fake. If this is genuine, it's like, okay, it's genuine. I don't really have a barrow to push. I don't really have to use this for my presupposition. My faith is not riding on this. For some people, there's a lot riding on a manuscript. There's a lot riding on a certain reading. And so, hopefully I can remain neutral. And by doing this in front of everyone, people can see what's going on and they can make their own evaluation. So Sean Chrisman says, what is a subscription title? I'm new to a lot of things. That would just be, the gospel according to Matthew. So usually kata matheon is what it would say. Kata, it's like the word Catholic, according to. What indicates P1 is a forgery? Nothing yet. But in my, there's really nothing that indicates that it is a forgery, but it does kind of, when Grenville and Hunt went out to find manuscripts, it was like, we're going to go to Egypt and find manuscripts. And this is the first thing they found. So it's a bit like if I said, hey, I'm going to go to the gold fields and find gold, and then I'm holding up a nugget the next day. To me, it's sort of like, it seems unbelievable, this story, but it could be true. I mean, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. That caused me to question this and go, really? But I don't know about the character of those people. They could be telling the truth. And so that's where I always want to keep the door open to that type of concept. I don't want to close the door on it, because what I find is people, like say with Sinaiticus, it's like people have said, hey, it's a modern day forgery. Now, regardless of whether that's coming from Stephen Avery, or coming from Jack Mormon, or coming from Chick Tracks, or whatever, it's like, okay, someone's made a claim. Simonides made this claim, and he's no dummy. He's actually well renowned as someone who could transcribe biblical documents. And so I think the thing is, people have shut the door to that concept because of who's saying it. Where I'm like, look, I don't care who's saying truth, I'll follow it. If someone says something that's true, I'll follow it. If they're saying something that's a lie, I'll reject it, regardless of what team they're on. And so I guess that's what indicates this to be a forgery. Not much yet. I guess as we go along, there might be a few things that crop up, but maybe not. Maybe I'll become strongly convinced that this is exactly what people are saying, a document from AD 200, and maybe I'll learn, or maybe I'll teach myself about this. But I don't want to come into this with the presupposition that it is just a AD 200 and that's it. That the gurus have figured this out. I want to look at it myself. I want to check out the lettering myself. I want to have a balanced opinion on this. And so, from the get-go, it's quite interesting that I've sort of noticed this little bit up here. And it does actually look like a bit of it could almost be a nomina sacra sort of thing, because it's got it seems to have a line above it. Now, that could just be a part of the damage on the manuscript. But it does look a little bit interesting. Now, I'm going to try a few different ways of looking at this document. Some of them are going to be ridiculous, but some of them are going to help. Okay, like this one here, look at that. But you can see what I mean. That does look like an upsilon with a line above it, doesn't it? Which is interesting. So here you have like nomina sacra. You have an upsilon here with a line above it. I mean, maybe it has like a page number. Maybe that's even documented. I'm not sure. But it does, like, say if you look at that and you come down here and look at, say, where was I looking at? Okay. Like these here, actually, that wasn't what I was looking at. What caught my eye? Yeah, that there. I think it's just a ton. So that new there, it does look similar. It's very interesting. Anyway, I'll keep going through some of these. Okay, that's interesting. Wow. Okay. Plastic wrap. So the neon glow one is actually really good. Now I might change that color, or actually we'll change the brightness. Okay, I'll just check out a few others. I think I've actually sort of jammed the computer by having really high resolution. Ah, here we go. That's what's happened. A little thing behind that was playing games with me. Okay, so we're looking at the brightness. So yeah, we can make that nice and bright, or the glow size. We can go, yeah, like this. That's interesting. Okay, so let's start with that. Let's turn on this neon glow, because we can still zoom in a fair bit with this document. I better not. It's quite a large photo, so I better not move it around too much, or my computer's going to die. But you can see what I'm saying here with these dots. Now, there's a bright dot. These ones, but doesn't that look like an upsilon with a line above it? I'm thinking it is. or maybe it was like a, yeah, 3 dots there. Maybe it was like some sort of artwork. So anyway, we've got Vivlos here. So what I'll do, I will crack open the Textus Receptus. Now, what would be the best page for that? Probably the one that I got, because at least I know I've double-checked Matthew 1 at least. I'll go down and find that document. Okay, so I may as well just use Scrivener's. Matthew 1. And okay, here we go. Okay, so we can see the Vivlos here. That's interesting that this is a little bit like it's not the same Vita as this one. It does look a little bit crunchy. And so sometimes when looking at manuscripts, looking at forgeries, what you can see is sometimes they're designed to go around holes, because the holes in a new papyri, the holes wouldn't exist. So sometimes the way that people do forgeries is they keep papyri for quite a long time, and then eventually that ends up looking very old, and then they write over it. So it gives the air of being something ancient. But sometimes what can happen too is the ink can end up wrapped inside the hole. So on examination, looking at the sides of the holes, you can see where ink is poured over the side, causing it to be doubted. So this is quite interesting that this Vita here is a strange type of pattern. And so as we go through, we'll look at more Vitas, and we'll check them out. I've got to stop moving that around actually, because it's such a big document. So I'll just zoom out a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I'll have a sip of my drink. Okay, so, well, first observation, before we get into Vivlos, this has an alpha here. Now, you can tell this is an alpha because of, say, the beginning word here, like Everhard. It's basically this exactly the same letter. So you can see it's designed, it's sort of shaped a bit like a fish. Well, actually, this has a different design, doesn't it? So you can sort of tell that. But yeah, very similar to this one here. So I think we would all be in agreement that's an alpha. Now, so that would be the first thing. At the top of the page, it's got an alpha, which would mean like chapter 1 or Kefalo Proto. And so this alpha here would indicate that it is the first chapter. So that would indicate too that it's probably part. Yeah, you would expect that if they had the other pages of Matthew 2, it would have a Vita there, or perhaps it's book 1. But perhaps they can actually go against that date, because when did they start numbering the documents? Would you consider that that's a number that is for a chapter 1, or would it just be part of the title, Kata Mantheon, and it's just got a alpha there, but perhaps it's not saying chapter 1, like you got chapter 2, 3, 4. Perhaps it's just some other type of thing there. But definitely, I'm gravitating toward this being an upsilon with a nomina sacra line above it. I am gravitating toward that. and it does look like it's got 3 dots here, 3 other little dots around it. And that's, to me, that's very interesting. Now, can we see anything else around the document? Because we sort of know, that says Vivlos, Genesios, and all the rest of it. But sometimes it's little details around the document that we can miss, like this. And maybe someone's already pointed that out. Actually, I've got to stop grabbing it and moving it. It's just too big. Okay, that does look like maybe something written there, but maybe it's just a scratch or a mark. Okay. Just search around. They sort of look like ink blotches a little bit, but that could be anything, just dark stains. Okay, there's a bit of stuff there. Okay, so apart from the alpha at the top, a little bit of a line there. That even looks like it could be someone's scribbling, like a bit of a pencil mark or something like that, but maybe not. It could just be a fluke. But that definitely looks like some sort of pattern that I'm seeing. And so Dwayne Green is in the house and says, I've been looking at Papyrus lately. I've got Comfort's transcriptions coming in the mail. Okay, that's great. Yes, and I listened to your program the other day, Dwayne. I usually do listen to it. Most of the time I tune in live about half an hour late, and I try and catch up, but I never do. So Kepure in All Ages is in the house. Maybe, Christian, you can tell us when we would expect the Reformation Bible Society videos to come out, because we're all on the edge of our seats, hanging to hear the information that came out of that conference. And so maybe you can let us know a rough estimate of when we should expect them. And so what does the crown number 1 icon mean? Crown number 1 means like you're the guru of the chat or whatever. So if you comment more, or if you're more frequent or something like that, however Google, who own YouTube, however they deem you as having, I guess maybe it's a Chinese type of credit score. Maybe you'll be able to get cheaper groceries if you're more frequent on my. I'll make that up anyway. If you like and subscribe and all the rest of it, you'll get cheaper groceries. No, I'm not really sure how it works, but it just means that they like you. It shows you commented the most. Yeah, perhaps that's exactly what it is. How can you read that? It looks like scribbles. It does look like scribbles. The more you look at it, the more it makes sense. And so I would recommend, if you're reading through Greek, start with something that's easier than this. But if you were to go, say, just to the Textus Receptus here, and learn the letters, half of the letters are basically English letters anyway. That's an A. You can tell, capital A for Abraham. You can almost, like, that's a row, and so it looks like a P, but it's an R. So you after a while you get used to just going through it, and then when it comes to these type of documents, there's not that much difference. Now, most of this is in capital letters, which usually, if you're learning modern Greek, the capital letters sort of they can be a little bit more confusing, and especially when you come to like an S. So usually S is like a capital C here. So Vivlos, I'm questioning why that's squiggly, but they have started it right there. So perhaps it's because there was something a little bit more elaborate there that's been damaged, perhaps. But so yeah, definitely it's saying Vivlos. Genesios, and so we can see the gamma, the epsilon, the nu, the epsilon, the omicron. Let's see. Hang on, no, that's a sigma. Genus, yeah. So that's a sigma, an epsilon, and a omega. So let me just double check that. Genus, eus. Okay, yeah, with the sigma on the end here. So that would match with the Textus Receptus. So here we have two words matching with the Textus Receptus, but I'm pretty sure with this verse, I think it's only the word David that has like a spelling variant. Some of them say Daud, which is a very common way of saying it in the Middle East. You wouldn't say David or David, like someone like Swedish would say David. You would say Daud. It's just the way they say it. So I think we would all be in agreement. It says Vivlos, again, es eus, genesius. So it's the book of the generation. And then we have the first nomina sacra here. So it's Yesu, which is Jesus, with the line above it indicating the nomina sacra, or Yesu Christu, again, a nomina sacra. So these early documents don't have any type of commas or, and they're written all in one line. So sometimes there are tiny spaces between, and it can confuse you at times because sometimes you'll see in the middle of a word a bit of a space, but I think that's just because it's handwritten. It's not done by a machine, sort of thing. Okay, so it's interesting here. They have the U, which I guess in the Erasmian North American twang Greek is wio, which the modern Greek is u, basically meaning the son of. And so here we have dubbed here. That's how I would sort of phonetically read it. And here we have delta, alpha, and this is a upsilon and an iota and then a delta. So this basically says Dawid. So that's the alternative spelling. So I'll quickly grab Matthew 1 on this, so we can just check that. Now, what I'll do as well, because we're in Adobe, I'll jump up to, okay, so that's the Wikipedia article. So we have the transcription here. So it says Vivlos Genesios. So it does have the alpha there that we saw, but I think, I don't know if anyone else has spotted that type of thing up in the corner. What do you guys think about this here? Does that look like it's a faded letter, or there's some sort of decoration thing there, or it's a type of nomina sacra? Let me know. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit more, and maybe, because we're just going through one line, but I don't want to neglect the fact that we might have actually discovered something here. Maybe it's old news to some of the old dogs, but let's have a look here. Okay, so I'm going to change the effect. Okay, maybe I can get the glow size a bit more. Okay. Maybe the brightness. But maybe what I can do too, let me cancel that. I'm going to copy this, zoom out, and I'll paste it. Actually, that's already got all the coding on it. So I'll grab a fresh one, which was this one here. Oops, that is the verso. We want the recto. So I'll grab this one and I'll pop it into Adobe here. And I will crop it so we just have this section. Okay, now we can do some effects on that. Okay, so wow, I'm just seeing more and more. It looks like a little nomina sacra in a type of box or something, just by moving through some of these. I mean, look at that. Upsilon with the line. Now, what would be a nomina sacra with the upsilon there? I mean, I guess Christu. Okay, yeah, that definitely that neon glow is the business. Okay, so let's just cancel that. Let's zoom in, and perhaps we can put that into inverting the colors. Okay, let's invert the colors. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so let's undo invert colors. Let's go to just grayscale. See if that helps us. Okay, it was definitely dark. Trying to blur my eyes and see other things, but undo that. But yeah, definitely the effects gallery is helping us here today. So anyway, let me know what you think that is. Whether it's just a blotch on the page. I'm pretty sure I'm clearly seeing a type of a letter there. Okay. Wow. Okay, let's convert it to that. I think you get the drift of why I'm seeing an upsilon there with 3 dots around it. But what I noticed before, just zooming out of that, and we'll just go back to the other document. What I noticed before was that in this one, there was like a broken nu that looked very similar. Where are we? Up the page a bit. Here. It looked like an upsilon. Maybe it's not that one, but something caught my eye before, and I was like, wow, that looks exactly like what I'm looking at. I'm just checking through that. And there's lots and lots of news in this. Anyway, I'm going to zoom back out. But definitely that to me is showing something other than a bit of scribble. So I will go back to the original. Because maybe the original's the best to look at it in. Okay. So first line, Vivlos, Genesios, Jesu Christu, Uio David, And so that's what I was doing. I was looking up the Matthew 1. So let's quickly look at that. Matthew 1:1. Okay, I'll throw this page here. We are at Matthew 1 and verse 1. I'll read through these comments. Dwayne Green says that looks like it might be a page marker or a section marker, kind of like the alpha that's up there. Dan McClellan claimed it was Eusebius canon numbers. Wow, very interesting. Thanks for that information. Ehrman said the alpha means chapter 1. Okay, that's interesting. What is the date of P1? It's dated to about 200. Kept it pure in all ages says 175 to 225. Sean Christian says Dwayne Green, the Wikipedia page said 3rd century. Dwayne Green says, I've begun to be more skeptical of papyrus dating methods. My last foray into P64 was quite opening. Yes, I listened to that and I thought it was interesting. I didn't watch it, I listened to it. So Geek Gnome says, what basis do we have of dating P1 to the 4th century? Or does he have of dating P1 to the 4th century? Fallen Truth says yes on one of his videos. He says that. Dwayne Green says, Get Gnome, if the characters at the top are the Eusebian canon, then it has to be after the 300s. So that's very interesting. Dwayne Green seems speculative, conjectural, or it seems speculative, conjectural, in my opinion. Dan doesn't hold to any early dates for many manuscripts. That's following Truth LJ. Dwayne Green says, Get Gnome, sure, but there are also no reason that they could have been added after the fact. It's clearly in a different hand. So that's an interesting point as well, that someone can come along 100 years later and scribble something into a manuscript, causing it to look modern or having a technology that's around in the year 400, and they've put it on an older document. So that's a very good point. Following Truth LJ says, sorry, just watch that video. He is saying it is a page number on P1 and that the reverse thea, maybe it's theta, reverse thea is a vita. Or maybe the reverse there. I'm assuming you're saying a Greek letter, thea, is a vita. That on the reverse, okay, so on the reverse of that document, okay, so I guess I'm trying to decipher what's said there, but I'll just keep reading through. Looks like maybe a flourish or design. Following Truth LJ says he referred to the Eusebian canon numbers and Sinaiticus. I got mixed up there. Okay, so that's cool. Chris Drymon, Dwayne Green, that skepticism is pretty well founded. Too many theories of theology have crept their way into the dating. That's interesting. Chris Diamond, this is Dwayne. He says there is no theology. It's someone looking at it and saying it looks kind of like this one, so we'll date it close to that. It is simplified, of course, but it's incredibly subjective. Kept Pure in All Ages says, we had an issue with the video, but the audio will be published in a couple of weeks. Okay, so that's fantastic. So yeah, a couple of weeks. Well, that's a bit of a shame with the video. Yeah. But yeah, audio is just as good, usually, for that type of thing, unless there's a presentation. But so Helg is in the house. Kept Pure in All Ages says, I may be able to salvage some of it. Okay. So hopefully. Chris Drymon says that the other cool thing that came out of the recent AI dating Dead Sea Scrolls effort, it exposed how far off scholars were. Dwayne Green says, sure, Brent Nombury has written a book about papyrus dating. I'll have to get his book. And he was very interesting looking at the Nominus Sacra when I was doing my Revelation 16:5 research. Dwayne says the Vita is later, in later Greek, is pronounced V. Dwayne Green says, I can't stay. May catch up later. Cheers, Dwayne. Thanks for dropping by. Sunu Heza says, cataloging marker. Okay, that's interesting. So there's a few opinions going around there. Bible Highlight is in the house. Hello, everyone. Listening Servants Ministries says, good evening. What software are you using? I'm just using Adobe Illustrator. So I'm subscribed to them. It comes in handy with me doing my thumbnails for the videos that I do, but it is actually quite expensive. But you can probably get something for free now that does this. But I'm so used to Adobe that I try and jump into any other Illustrator program and I struggle. So everyone's saying hello. Bible Highlighter says, scholars note that Papyrus 1 aligns closely with Codex Vaticanus, especially in the variant of Matthew 1:3, where it reads Zareh instead of Zara. Okay, so Bible Highlighter says, but more notable is Matthew 1:6. And so when we get to that part, we'll examine that with Vaticanus. Born Again Christian is in the house. So Papyri 1 omits the phrase the king in Matthew 1:6. And it's quite interesting that when you have the three sections, so it says from Abraham to David are 14 generations, from David until the carrying away of the Babylon, into Babylon are 14 generations, from the carrying away into Babylon unto Christ are 14 generations. And so it has these 14 things, but when it says David the king, and it clearly repeats that as part of until David the king this, and from David the king until so it does have the Basilia word there, and it's quite well documented that's how it should read. So this aligns with Alexandrian text type manuscripts. So I know that's what most people would say, but I'm questioning that. And I believe this is actually not aligned with Vaticanus, except for maybe a couple of names here and there. And so that's why I'm going through this. So obviously the Daud, so we'll go into that. So Matthew 1:1. So here we have the page. Now I'll zip down to the manuscripts, which are here. Other Greek. Okay, so Papyrus 1 has Daud. Okay, so it's just an alternative spelling. So the upsilon and the vita are interchangeable. Phonetically interchangeable. Now, I'm pretty sure that Dwayne Green mentions this here. The vita in later Greek is pronounced V. And maybe there was something else mentioned here. Okay. I can't see anything else there, but that's fine. Okay, so let's keep going through this. So we see the Daud, and here it's in a nomina sacra type of form, which is Sinaiticus in all capitals. So then we see Codex Washingtonianus. It is missing the section, which would just be an alpha or something like that. So we see Codex Basiliensis, Daud. So we see, we can see how this could easily, if it's in a nomina sacra form and people wanted to expand it, having having the way that it's said in the Arabic world. In the Arabic world, they do say Daud. They don't say Dawid, or sorry, they say Dawid or Daud, but they don't say David or David. So it's very similar. It's sort of phonetical, but what's interesting is most of these manuscripts have it in a type of form, except for P1 and Vaticanus. Okay, so these two seem to have that. Now, notice that Vaticanus has an epsilon there. So it's interesting to look at the differences just in this. So it doesn't have the nomina sacra, which is quite strange that to have the first son, Wiu, in or U, Vivos Genesius, that's Yesu, Yesu, Christu, Wiu, David, Wiu, Abraham. Okay, so what I'm thinking of is in P1, sometimes they say it has the son, the Wiu of David, and they have the son spelt out of Abraham. But I don't think they do that on the Wikipedia article, but they did it on something else that I saw the other day, and I thought, oh, that's weird. It was in some Bible program. Okay, so let's go back to our description. Yeah, so they don't do it there. Where another one spelt it out, and I thought, why would they spell it out? They've already got son here. Son here with the two upsilons there. But anyway, I'm sort of waffling a little bit there. So we've gone through the first line, and I think we are all pretty much in agreement that there is something at the top of the manuscript there that has yet to be deciphered. Now, before I go to the second line, I might just read a little bit of this. So Papyrus 1 is an early papyrus manuscript of one chapter of the Gospel of Matthew in Greek. It is designated by the siglum P1, Papyrus 1, in the Gregory Aland numbering of the New Testament manuscripts, and as Epsilon 01 in the von Soden numbering of New Testament manuscripts. Using the study of comparative writing styles, paleography, it is dated to the 3rd century. So I listened to a guy this morning who said it's been carbon dated to the 3rd century. And I was like, I don't think it has. And so, perhaps it has, but, and people aren't mentioning it. But it seems like even just on bog standard Wikipedia, they're saying they're using the comparative study of writing styles. So it's just the paleography. They're saying, well, this type of writing was around that era, and that's why we've dated it to that. So it is dated to the 3rd century. It was discovered in Oxyrhynchus, Egypt. And so perhaps we'll do a whole program on Oxyrhynchus. It is currently housed at the University of Pennsylvania Museum. And so I did read that it was housed in Oxford, which was strange. So maybe it has been moved. Maybe it was originally housed in Oxford. So anyway, we'll keep going through. The description: the manuscript was likely a codex, the precursor to the modern book format, of which a fragment of one leaf has survived. So these footnotes are good to check on the way through. So I'll just check that. Number one, an online copy of the manuscript in Munster. So you can look at it there, or you can go to here, where it's Kurt Aland has written this book here. The text, written in one column per page, 27 to 29 lines per page, is roughly sized 14.7 centimeters or 6 inches by 15 centimeters, 6 inches. The original codex was arranged in 2 leaves in quire form. Okay, so this information's coming from Kurt Aland, and then Grenfell and Hunt with their Oxyrhynchus Papyri 1 book. So that's an old book, 1898. They're the guys who discovered the manuscript. So basically it's this big. It's as big as this book here. That's how big that page is. The surviving texts of Matthew are verses 1 to 9, verse 12, and 13 and 14 to 20. The words are written continuously without separation. Accents and breathings are absent, except two breathings, which are a smooth breathing and on the fifth letter. So that says Obed Ek, which is interesting that it's got a breathing mark on the X. So I want to check that out just as we're going through this. So we're going to get to our second line soon, but this is saying that there is a breathing mark on line 14. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Here. So Ek, yes. It does seem to have a breathing mark there, which is interesting. I guess when we get to that, we'll check out and see whether it is actually a breathing mark or not. We'll try and decipher some of that. But let's continue with this article. So that's in line 14 of the verso. And a rough breathing in the fourth letter of the last letter, so a sun in line 14 of the recto. Okay, so so it's on both of them on line 14. So this one unfortunately doesn't go any bigger. That's the back side of it, but we will try and find something a little bit better. But I don't think we'll get to that part of it today. But let's just have a look at 14 here. 1, 2. Okay, so that's the first one. So it's actually saying it's a eta. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, well, that's the Ek one there. I think they've messed up and they've called the recto the verso. That's why I'm getting confused. But it is Wikipedia. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so they're sort of saying that there is a type of breathing mark, which is interesting. I don't know if we can spot that. Be hard to spot it on that one. But yeah, that's interesting. We've got this little bit here that seems to go on to something else. Looks like a PAR there. Looks like a epsilon and a gamma, which would be evangelical. It could say the gospel or something. And it looks like way bigger font. That's interesting. So I've got to find a really good picture of that. Public domain, Yeah, maybe. Anyway, I'll do that. I don't want to do too many things at once. So let's go to, maybe I've got the picture on my Textus Receptus. Sometimes I do find things and put a link to it, and I forget that I've actually done that homework. No, I looked at those before. They are not there anymore, or maybe they are. Let's have a quick look. Okay. So it's saying this manuscript is here. Image Library, University, Pennsylvania. Anyway, that's going to be a huge thing. So we'll just go back to our papyri here. And let's just keep looking. Okay, so Biblos Genesios Jesu Christu Will David, and it should have Will here because it's got Abraham, and so that's the common reading. And I think you would agree that that's just says Doid, and it's not. It doesn't actually have a vita there, so it's phonetically different. And then we have Abraham or Avraham. So I think we would all agree that that just says Avraham, and then we have Avraham again, Avraham there. So it should have a delta or a delta here. Avraham there. So the delta and the epsilon are completely faded by the looks of it. Maybe I can quickly put it into the effects gallery again, and we'll check it out. Yeah, it just almost doesn't come up at all. It looks like there's a bit of a tear here in the paper that's fallen off. So that would have there. So, and this appears all the way through Matthew 1. So it's quite an easy thing to look at. So Egenesen ton is an arc. So when we look at the then, it would, I'll find a good example of it. Now probably doesn't have the final nu, so it's probably just a delta and an epsilon. So here, that's the delta and the epsilon. So that's exactly what it would look like. So this one here, delta, epsilon, and then it has Egenesen. So we would see that it has Abraham there, Egenesen ton. Okay, so it's there and not then. So the final nu is not there. Okay. So Abraham there, Egenesen ton, and that would say Isaac there. But I think we'd be in agreement that this line here just says Avraham, and it most probably says there, Egenesen ton, and then it's missing the part that says Isaac. But here it has Isaac here. Isaac. Okay. Then it would have Isaac, and then the same that's missing here, the there. Isaac there, Egenesen ton Jacob. So it's interesting the way that they've putting these dots on the iotas here. So you have Isaac with this line above it, and you have Yaakov with these two lines here. So that would be an interesting thing to look into. So we've sort of gone through two lines. So let's just check with our Wikipedia article here that has the translation here by Comfort. Now, so we'll see Avraham, and then Avraham, Egenesen ton Isaac. So they don't have in brackets there. Now, I'm pretty sure there should be there. Maybe I'm making a mistake, but let's have a look. Okay, that's Matthew 1. We're looking at Matthew 2. Where are we? Actually, I'll just look at Scriveners. It's easiest. Avraham Egenes. Okay, so it doesn't have the there. Okay, so Avraham. Okay, so it would have a epsilon and a gamma, Egenesen ton. Okay, so it doesn't have the there. Sorry. I was used to the pattern that there. So if you go through this, you can see that the there is here, it's here, It's sort of like on every line here, and so I was just expecting it to be there for some reason, but it's not there. So we wouldn't expect it to be there. We wouldn't expect it there, that type of thing to be there. It would be just a epsilon and a gamma. A genesenton is an arc, or is an arc, and then is an arc, and that would have the there here. That's missing, and that is what we see here. Is an arc there again? Is Senton Yakov. So that would be Yakov. So it's hard to tell, and it's got a bit of sticky tape over it. But let's look at these two lines with a bit of a neon glow. Neon glow seems to be the go. Okay. So it's interesting. There's another dot there. I'm not sure if it's just an ink splotch, but it's definitely something happening there. But the Isa arc, it does have like a type of breathing mark perhaps above it, which is interesting because the Isa arc does have the same type of breathing mark here, and the second alpha does have a mark above it as well, and it does seem like this has that type of mark above it. So that's very interesting. Maybe those dots are just ink spots or something like that, but perhaps they are actually ways to phonetically pronounce the name. Let's have a quick look at the Wikipedia page and what they have here. So they have Isaac, and so they don't have any of the dots there, which is interesting. I guess if I was to write that out, I would have a little asterisk there and down the bottom, and perhaps show the picture and say, look, this looks like it could be some sort of dots. But as you'll see, the Yakov here definitely has something going on with it here with the two dots. It's an iota with two dots here. So that's not like an upsilon or anything. That's two dots and a Yakov. So iota, alpha, kappa, omega, and a vita there. Okay. So I guess what we're looking at here is we're seeing that some of these dots, now perhaps people have noted that these dots are appearing on these names, but it doesn't seem to be mentioned like in, but we're just looking at Wikipedia, so that's just the reason I look at Wikipedia, because I know Leslie, he did quite a lot of work on the manuscripts, and I copied a lot of his work. He sometimes would jump on my Textus Receptus site and do work as well. Now, he's a critical text guy, but he does just put in information. And so usually the Wikipedia articles on biblical manuscripts are really good because of him. And so that's why I go there. I know that he will branch out and show you, okay, Philip Comfort says this, and Bart Ehrman says this, and Metzger says this, and he'll show you a bunch of things like that. But they're usually the ones who are making claims about manuscripts, and so they're just the popular ones. But I guess people over the years would have noticed these type of things, but it's not mentioned in the Wikipedia article at all. So Feynman and the Revolution says, now, what is this religion? It's too many to keep up. Okay. Well, you can hang around. It's actually Christianity. So it's the only true religion. And so, yeah, we have Yaakov here. So Abraham, Genesenton Isaac, there again is Senton Yaakov, and then Jacob here, Yaakov is missing, but so it has Yaakov there, Egenese ton Yudan. Okay. And so we see here as well. Let me just grab the Textus Receptus here. Now, I'm not just showing you the TR just because it's like, oh, Textus Receptus. I'm just showing you that this is the usual, like most of the names aren't that different. And usually if they are, it's very well known. So these are iotas here. But usually you don't have an iota with a line here and it's almost like a breathing mark here. And we have this one with 2 dots. So I would suggest it's just like 2 dots here. Oh, that has the 2 dots there. So we're seeing this pattern. So the Isaac has the 2 dots and a line. The Yaakov has 2 dots and a line. And then we go through to Yudan has 2 dots and a line. So that seems to be the way that they're writing this document. And it would be, that name would just be repeated because you have, actually it says Yudan Kaitos Adelphos Aftu. So, and his brothers also. And so the next word here would be the K, which is the conjunction, the and there. And so I think we would all be in agreement that that would be pretty bog standard way of looking at it. Unless you can see anything different, I'm just going to keep moving on. Now we are at verse 3. So where it's got Judas again. So okay, yes, sorry, I've done parablepsis and skipped a line. So here we go. So this would have K toys, and that's, it looks like Adele voice here. Maybe an alpha, delta, epsilon, lambda, psi, omicron, upsilon, and a sigma. It looks like just Adelphos is written here. Aftu is written here. I don't think there's any controversy about that. And then we move on to Judas here. So we seem to have the iota, and here we have 1 dot there. So you would assume that there's probably another dot there just by the pattern that we're seeing with those. The Judas. So obviously there's damage here in the manuscript. Judas there, Agenese. So I'll move that page over a bit. And bring back our document. So Judas there Agenese. So Agenese. So Judas. So that's the there here. So there's the epsilon, gamma, epsilon, and it has the nu, and perhaps a sigma and an epsilon. So it seems like the line goes out to here. So we will convert that to a neon glow. Let's do that. Does seem to fade right off. Okay, and that seems to be the edge of the manuscript, except it goes over it here. Okay, there's some blotchiness there. Okay, so let's go back. So I think everyone would be in agreement about that line there, which just says Judas the Egenese. And then we're probably going to see, or we'll have a look and see what's next. I'll go undo the neon glow. So it's this line here, where we've got Fares. Okay, so Judas the Egenese. We've got Ton. Fares. So that looks like, am I on the right line? No, that's the Adelphos one. Sorry, wrong line. This one here. Egenese. It clearly says Ton Fares here. Okay. So the word before Ton Fares is the Egenese. Okay, so it does look like this letter here looks like a moon or something else. Maybe no, that's an N. So that's the that looks like a sigma, an epsilon, and a nu. So that would relate to the these three letters here. Sorry, I said yeah. So sorry, not those three letters. Those two letters with a movable nu. So a sigma, epsilon, and a nu, and then a ton. So that letter there, even though it looks like a bit of an M, it's actually this nu here. Okay. Fares, K-ton, K-ton, Zara. Okay, so this is where we have our first type of change that people are saying this is why it's related to Vaticanus. And so let's have a quick look at that. So K, ton, Zara. So it's definitely an epsilon there. It's not an alpha. In the vast majority of manuscripts, it is spelt with a A, Zara. It could be a typo, but it could be deliberate as well. So that's one of the reasons why, because Vaticanus spells it that way. They say, see, it's similar to Vaticanus. And so it has an ek, the Texe here, and then the beginning of Thamar. So you can see the theta, the alpha, and then I think it moves just onto the next line down, and I will make that disappear. We'll go down to the next line. This line here. So Thay, and it looks like that's like a mu, an alpha, and a rho, Thamar. Okay, so let's double check that. Ictes Thamar, and then it has Fares here, Fares, there, Egenese, so which is written here, this line, Faras the Egenese, so ton Esmun. Okay, let's check out Esmun. Egenese, the Egenese ton, and I'm pretty sure there's an epsilon there that's missing. And this is the S in Esmun. S, that's a mu there, an omega, and a nu. Sorry, that's a M. So it's Esrom. So yeah, I was thinking that that's a mu for some reason. I was like, that's a different mu, but that's a rho. Okay. And that's the mu. So getting a bit slisdexic there with my letters. So Esrom. Okay. So as you can see, if you were a scribe going through this, like that mu, it does look like an omega, which is the letter next to it. And also, as you go along, the pi letter, the P, can be exactly the same as that, but the top is just a little bit more like a horseshoe coming together. And so when you going through these Greek letters, you can get quite confused. But it's good to have a guide like this. That's why I've just got the Textus Receptus here. Most people have tried to examine manuscripts by examining them with the Textus Receptus throughout history. That's just what's happened. So, okay, so we have gone up to this Esrom here. So we would kind of expect it to start with him again in the next line. Let's check that out. Oops. And we'll go back up to here. So Esrom. It can be hard to see exactly. Okay, so it's where this whole tear is. So if we just zoom out, have a look at the manuscript, it looks like that's a fold line, doesn't it? Like someone's folded it there. That's where it's all crunched and crumbled, because these are, papyrus, they're all smashed with a hammer and dried out, and all soaked in water, then dried out. And okay, before how I was saying it looks like I had it on neon glow, and I was like, oh, that looks like it's a pencil mark, and it's actually a pen mark with a 2 there. You can clearly see that. So that's interesting. Don't know why they've done that, but that looks like it could be a bit of ink there. That's definitely ink. The more that I look at that, it's definitely something. Okay, so that's good to know that we're at this crease, because it's getting hard to sort of decipher where we're actually up to. So we have Esrom. So then this would be Esrom there again, along here. So let's have a quick look at that. We'll bring that across. Okay, where are we? I think I made that smaller for some reason. Let's make it nice and big. Okay, so that we're looking at this as Rom, and that's the epsilon, the sigma, rho is missing, the omega and the M are damaged. Then we have the and the E genese ton. So we have arum. So that looks like a mu there. But it's pretty hard to decipher. And I might zoom in again. Let's just zoom in. Okay, where were we? We're at this part here. Egenesen ton aram. So that does look like a mu there, doesn't it? But it doesn't look like the same type of mu that's here. Aram. But it's hard to know what that one is. Okay. Okay. Alpha rho, alpha mu. And gen SN, and that looks like a ton, and then an alpha or ton alpha. Yeah, that looks like the bottom of the row, and then maybe another alpha and a mu joined very similar together. Okay, these letters don't look that much different in size. It seemed to be a tiny bit bigger, but on examination with these other ones, it's very similar. Okay, so we're at the end of that with Aram. So I wonder if Aram is actually repeated here. It's hard to say. There is enough room for it. So if we don't have Aram at the beginning of this one, so it could be Aram and then there Egenese. So that's Egenese. So Aram the Egenese. So let's have a quick look. Maybe it has, maybe that's an alpha, because sometimes you get your alphas and your deltas mixed up. So say that's an alpha there, but that's a delta. So they're very similar. They sort of look like triangles sort of that have fallen over or have a little lip. So that's definitely there, and that's definitely an alpha. So that there seems like a there. So Aram, there, but it seems if that is a there, that would make that an epsilon, and it seems too much space here, because that would mean all of that is space, and we can see there are things missing. So that would be Egenese. So I would say that this is actually Aram here, which is hard to see, but I know it seems like I'm just going through just the weeds here, but let's have a look at what Comfort saw. Okay, so he saw Ezrom here, so that's correct, Ezrom, the Egenesen, and then he has Aram on the other line. He says that's a there, and then Egenesen here. Yes, Egenesen. So I'm saying that that's the first letter of the word, where actually that would have a mu here and an epsilon here. So that is enough for that to be put in there. So that's fine. Okay, so just double checking. So I might get to the end of verse 3, and then we'll have a bit of an examination with that. So Egenesen, let's go across. So Egenesen, and then ton. And so we'll start from this word here, which will be another name. Aram Egenesen ton Aminadav. Okay, so the alpha, the mu, the iota, Aminadav. Okay, so Egenesen ton Amin Adav. Okay, so and on Comfort's line, so it has Aminadav, and then has the alpha and the mu in Aminadav, and then that continues on the next line. And it seems like that's what's happened here. Okay, Egenesen, sorry, we're on this line. Ton Amin a dove. And so min a dove. A min. Alpha. So okay, so that's an alpha. That's a delta. And that's an alpha. So see these three letters here? That's exactly what I was saying. So that's an alpha. That's the letter A. And that's the letter D, the delta. And that's the letter A again. And this letter here is the vita, which is interesting. Maybe it's, yeah, it looks damaged here. So I guess that, but it does seem to have like this sort of taily thing. Interesting. I mean, a dove. So that's a min, a nu here, min a dove. And then he's got another alpha there and a mu here. And so I think I'll just stop there because we're into 1.4. We're sort of halfway through 1.4. Not stop there, but I just want to recalibrate, just check a few things, and also check out some of these what would be labeled as text variants. So okay, so we did look at the 14th line, and then I sort of stopped reading there. So the manuscript includes nomina sacra, early abbreviations of the names / titles considered sacred in Christianity, of which the following are witness. So Jesus, Christos, Uios, Pneuma, and Kurios, all in nomina sacra type of forms. The Greek text of the Codex is considered, so listen to this, considered to be a representative of the Alexandrian. Biblical scholar Kurt Ahlin placed it in category 1 of his New Testament manuscript classification system. According to scholars, P1 has close agreement with Codex Vaticanus. It supports Vaticanus in 1.3 reading of Zare against Zara. 10 of the variants are in the spelling of names of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, which is actually the genealogy of Joseph, but you know that's what modern Bibles say. Biblical scholar Herman Hoskier. So Herman Hoskier, he worked a lot on the Textus Receptus. He found 17 to 20 word variations, see below, and denied close agreement with Vaticanus. So this is interesting. Herman Hoskier was saying it's not close to Vaticanus at all. Or not at all, but it's basically saying there's 3 words here that are close to Vaticanus, the rest of it's not. So this is the list of disagreement with Vaticanus according to Hoskier. So he's saying Papyrus 1 has this nomina sacra for son. Vaticanus has that spelled out. The spelling of David has Dawid with the epsilon in it in Vaticanus. Aminadab that we were looking at. And so even in English, the A-D-A are very similar, you know. Aminadab, or that's actually Greek, I said English, but is Aminadab with an epsilon in it. So you can see that people are like, oh, see, it's Vaticanus. There's quite a lot of difference in that. So, but you can see where I'm coming from. There's an extra epsilon there. There's a 2 here, which is extra in Vaticanus. Abia here spelt different again. And so it has a Genesen here, which it just has Gena, which is a bad mistake in Vaticanus. Now there's some places where it's not reading, but you can probably, because there's so much repeated in this chapter, you can probably guarantee that they've spelt the thing the same way, and they're repeating it. And so Mathan only has one theta in Vaticanus. So you can see there is quite a fair bit of difference in Vaticanus. People have just said, no, it's the same as Vaticanus. And unfortunately, this is the type of thing, this is why I'm going through this document. I'm trying to make sure that we're matching up all the letters. And I will go back through this video and type it out exactly how I'm seeing it. So that way we don't just have to rely on who is comfort here, the text according to comfort, but we can rely on what our own eyes are seeing, and then we can get Vaticanus and all that's written out of Matthew 1 there. We can get Papyrus 1 and all that's written out there. Then we can look at the differences and just maybe highlight them side by side. Like here, even just having these side by side, it's quite eye-opening, isn't it? And so we see even Jesus Christ is around a different way. Jesu Christu is Christu Jesu in Vaticanus. So quite a bit of difference. David, again, is spelled differently. So that's quite an interesting thing. So I'm going to start dealing with Grenfell and Hunt, and I'll probably do a whole program on these guys because we want to understand who they were. What were these guys? Just like Indiana Jones type guys going around looking for things, or were they biased against the Textus Receptus? Were they saying we think that the Textus Receptus is vile and it's just it's disgusting and all the rest of it? Do they have a barrow to push, or maybe they're neutral? Maybe they're on our side. I don't know. And so, but it says here the history. Papyrologists Bernard Payne Grenfell and Arthur Surridge Hunt discovered the papyrus at Oxyrhynchus in Egypt on the third or fourth day of excavation on January 13th or 14th, 1897. And this has just got the footnotes here. This is written in 1897 by Grenfell, and here's another one written in 1898 by Hunt and Grenfell. Their findings were published in the first volume of the Oxyrhynchus Papyri in 1898. The manuscript was examined by Francis Crawford Burkitt, Hermann C. Hoskia, Comfort, and many other scholars. Grenfell and Hunt collated its text against the Textus Receptus and against the text of Westcott and Hort. Okay, so I guess once you've collated it, you can, if you've got it written out there, you can test it against anything. They found that the manuscript belongs to the same class as the Sinaiticus Vaticanus codices and has no Western or Byzantine proclivities. Unusually, it agrees with these two codices when they are in agreement. Where they differ, the manuscript is near to Vaticanus, except in one important case where it has to the Jesu Christu, now the birth of Jesus Christ, where it agrees with Sinaiticus. And so it's got 3:7 written here. Okay, that's the same book. It was the earliest known manuscript of the New Testament until the discovery of P45. Okay, so at the time, this was the oldest Bible manuscript. So this was like, hey, we found this papyri. It matches Vaticanus. It matches Sinaiticus. But as we just saw, it's got a lot of differences. So we're going to examine why this is said, why this is accepted. Is it really a Vaticanus type manuscript, or is there a bit of bias there? Because Hermann Hoskia, he definitely said that he doesn't feel. Oh, okay, so here's a high resolution image here of the other side. There we go. Yes, so that will be great when we get to that side, and you can download the image. That's fantastic. Okay, so we will definitely be utilizing that and looking at that. Okay, so let's go back here. Now let's go to my website where I've got some info. So this is the original Oxyrhynchus Papyri book. I think it's in 1898. St. Matthew's Gospel, Chapter 1, Plate 1, frontispiece, 14.7 times 15 centimeters. So it's almost square. And so, you know, when you get a 30 centimeter ruler, you know, it's half of that. So that, and squared. Part of the sheet of a papyrus book, which had been folded originally to make 2 leaves. Of one of these, only a small portion is left, containing on the recto the beginnings of the 3 lines written in good size uncials, again, and then pa, and then met. So that's interesting. The other leaf, which is tolerably complete and is written on both sides and in a smaller and probably different uncial hand, with an occasional tendency towards cursive, contains verses 1 to 9. So they're saying it tends towards a cursive, which to me is something that came around later. Because it went from capital letters down to cursive, but there are some letters, the delta, the alpha, that can be written in a way that is kind of cursive. But we'll just keep going along and just see what they say. So verses 1 to 9, 12, 14 to 20 of the first chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel. This papyrus was found near that containing the Logia a day or 2 afterwards. Though the writing is somewhat later in style than that of the Logia, there is no likelihood of it being subsequent to the beginning of the 4th century, and it may with greater probability be assigned to the 3rd. It may thus claim to be a fragment of the oldest known manuscript of any part of the New Testament. The part preserved consists mainly of the genealogy, and the variants are not many, nor important, being chiefly found in the spelling of the proper names. So far as the papyri goes, it tends to support the text of Westcott and Hort against the Textus Receptus, okay? The common biblical contractions, Jesu or Jesus Christos, Huios, Son, Pneuma, Spirit, and Kyrios, Lord, examples of which already occur in the Logia, are also found here. So I'm not sure what the Logia is, so maybe I can quickly Google that. Logia, Grenville and Hunt. Okay. Oxyrhynchus, Papyrus Oxyrhynchus 1, okay, is a fragment of the Logia of Jesus, so the word of Jesus. This was among the Oxyrhynchus papyri discovered by Grenville and Hunt. It was discovered on the 2nd day of excavations. That's definitely what they're talking about. What is it? It is uncial letters. It's got nomina sacra. So it's the sayings of Jesus. They're independent of the 4 Gospels in their present form. They observe some parallels with the work of Clement of Alexandria. So it looks like it's got some of the sayings of Jesus. I'm not sure whether they're just biblical or apocryphal. Interesting. So yeah, I guess we'll have to look into that, seeing they're mentioning it, but we'll just keep going through. So at least we know what it is now. So the Logia. Okay, so the sayings of Jesus. A stop occurs in line 17 of the verso and a rough breathing in the line 14 of the recto. An apostrophe is occasionally placed after foreign names, and the diaresis over the iota is common. So that's what I was pointing out, that issue above the iota. The two sides of the leaf containing the St. Matthew are numbered alpha and beta, and it is noteworthy that the verso is uppermost. So let's have a quick look at that. Now, I guess that's what we were discussing earlier, but I didn't really I didn't look at this. This has a beta here, apparently. No, I can't really zoom in on it. It goes smaller. That's no good. But yeah, so that would be page 1 and that would be page 2. Okay. So they numbered alpha and beta, and it is noteworthy that the verso is uppermost. So I guess noteworthy saying the verso is uppermost, I guess that would mean because it probably has a heading. You know, this is the kata Mattheon is usually, according to Matthew, Evangelion kata Mattheon. As the arrangement in the choir of the two leaves forming the sheet is wholly uncertain, the question, what relation, if any, the beginnings of the 3 lines of the other leaf have to St. Matthew's fragment cannot be determined. So that's this part here that I was showing you, this bit here, which it seems to have egg, pa, and men or something like that. So that could be like a cover. It could have Evangelion. I'm not really sure what the go is there. Maybe we can look back on, or what I'll do, I'll download it for next time, or maybe we should just download it now and just risk the bandwidth dying. I'll do that. Let's have a quick look. Now, this won't be like a 4-hour video. This will probably go for maybe 2.5. But I do want to try and grab this one here and have a good look at that. So I'm not sure of the difference between them, but let's download that image. Okay. Now I'll go from downloads to my Adobe Illustrator. Now I'll just zoom out of that. So it appears on the back side of this one here. So you can sort of see that's like the end of the page there. Now it's in this region here, which is interesting. Okay, so let's go to downloads. Let's drop this one in. Okay, so it's not as big, but that's fine. It doesn't have to be huge for us to check it out. It's this part here. So it's definitely epsilon. That looks like a gamma. So, and it looks like darker ink, doesn't it? Like they've purposely gone over it, like it's a heading. And that looks like a pa, and that looks like, well, they've got it written here what they think it is, but they're not sure what it is. So that would be an interesting thing to figure out, or maybe someone has figured it out, because these guys have basically found it and they've just printed this book. So they're probably on the field looking at it going, okay, this is what it says, but I mean, it doesn't mean that they've been able to compare it to everything. They've just compared it to Westcott and Hort text, compared it to the Textus Receptus. Okay. As the arrangement in the choir of 2 leaves forming the sheet is wholly uncertain, the question what relation, if any, the beginnings of these 3 lines on the leaf have to the St. Matthew fragment cannot be determined. The difference in the handwriting and the greater margin above the 3 broken lines distinguish it from the text of St. Matthew, although they may have formed a title of some kind. So that's what I was saying. It looks like a bit of a title. I'll quickly go through some of these comments. I forgot that you guys were here. Okay, notable omission, Papyri 1 is Christ in Matthew 1:16. So that'll be good when we get to there. Irenaeus of Lyons, 130 to 202. Language originally Greek, parts survive in Greek, much in Latin. Translation work against heresies, book 3, chapter 21. Okay. Very interesting. Feynman and the Revolution. Money is my religion. It's my only religion. I see that everybody agrees with Muslim or Christian, atheist or Satanist. Okay. You can block me, but as long as you don't block my money. Okay. Bible Highlighter says, so an early Christian writer quotes the genealogy of Matthew and includes the phrase identifying Jesus as Christ. So the Alexandrian side does not win. Need to double check the source I gave though. But there are others like Origin of Alexandria, Caesarea, 184 to 253, that has the Byzantine reading. Yeah, so we're gonna stick with P1 for a while, become really familiar with it, and all that's involved. And so I'll keep reading through. Hopefully, I can get through these 4 pages of information from Grenville and Hunt, and that will be a good place to stop. A facsimile of the verso is given in the frontispiece. The condition of the recto is not good, the writing being entirely effaced in some parts. Okay. So here we have how they've written it out. So that would be interesting. Maybe what I can do is type that out. Then I'll type out Comfort's one. Then, yeah, I guess anything else like, that appears online. There was a few others. But see here, this is where I was trying to bring up before, the Wiyu, the sun. You wouldn't expand that. You would naturally think that if it's got the sun written here in a contracted form, it would be contracted here as well. But anyway, that's how they've done it. Now, we only got up to Aminadab here, this line here. So the end of the second section, basically. So line number 9. So we're about to get to line number 10. So we only just got to there. Now, as I'm typing these out, I'll double check it. But definitely it did say Zara there. So that's what we're checking. And they do have the double dots over the yotas there, which is good to know that they've got details there. There's no point really going through that much of that one, but it's good to know that they have put that information there. Go to the next one. And so we give, with the collation, the Textus Receptus and the Westcott and Hort text. So they give it all the details of the Westcott and Hort and Tia. And so, so it says Dawid. So they're saying, oh, okay, that's Westcott and Hort, but it's got an epsilon in there. It sort of makes you wonder, and then they're like, okay, N16 and on the back, verse 9. But it's like, okay, so it doesn't have the epsilon there. But so the TR has the Vita there, but it's still got a different letter. And so why is it just, I guess, because it does have the iota there, and it does have an iota here, but it has an extra letter. So it's like, okay, well, we've got an iota there. The upsilon. Yeah, anyway, I'll go through that that issue with the Davids one and see also what Hoskier said about it. So I'll find Hoskier's source document of what he wrote about this. So then we see a Genesen, so Westcott and Hort and throughout, where the Textus Receptus is a Genese. But that seems a little bit, whoops, I've lost the page. Seems a little bit kind of illiterate, because when you get to like Textus Receptus editions, the movable nu it's not really an issue. And so let's have a quick look at, say, Matthew 1:2. We'll go down to Greek manuscripts. Or actually, Textus Receptus editions. So Scrivener Agenese, I'm pretty sure. Okay, we've got Agenese there. Agenese. But it was sort of like a stylistic pattern. So say, look, the text of Robert Stephanus has a Genesen. So it's actually just stylistic, because we know that the text that he has, Beza just has a Genese. So it's stylistic to have the movable nu or non. But they're making out that, that makes it closer to Vaticanus. Well, it's like, well, okay, here's the 1550 Textus Receptus, so it's close to that, but you wouldn't necessarily say that, like in his 1546 edition, he doesn't have the movable nu. But then he does have the movable nu a couple of years later, and then Beza removes the movable nu. So it's not an issue. So that's why I'm like, well, why would these guys bring that up? And sometimes too, when you study through this type of thing with people making these type of claims, you realize that, like, I understand people have got to put all the information down, but sometimes they don't know much. They don't know a lot. And especially when you're studying Textus Receptus stuff, day after day after day, after a while you become familiar with it. You look at Scrivener's work and you're like, actually, he's made a few blunders here. And I'm looking at this just going, if you're saying Genesen is closer to the Westcott and Hort text here, that's not a determiner as to whether that's a Genese or a Genesen. It's a movable nu. It's a nothing. It's like having a space. It's nothing. It doesn't mean anything. So here we've got Zara. So Westcott, they're saying Westcott and Hort has Zara, but then Vaticanus has Zare. So showing that Westcott and Hort doesn't even go with Vaticanus here. So, Aminadab. So it's Aminadab here, Westcott and Hort and TR. Okay. Aminadab. Anyway, we'll get to that one. I'm not sure why they've just got Westcott and Horton and TR here. Or maybe, well, that's on line number 9. So that's in what we were looking at. It's missing a mu. Okay. But is it missing a mu? Have a quick look. So on the line that we were on, okay, so that's the other manuscript. Let's zoom back out, get back to our original manuscript. Let's zoom back in, and we are looking at this line here. So Genesen ton I mean, it's pretty hard to see where there's a Aminadab there. But the manuscript might have been in better condition when they had it, because you move it over to England and it's fallen to bits. Like, what would have they kept it in? They probably would have put it on a piece of paper, and I mean, even here you can see crumbs just falling off. But so Helg says this may prove to be very beneficial study of the papyrus manuscripts, a very beneficial study of the papyrus manuscripts, to see if the usual narrative of both the text and the dating holds water, and not to take anything for granted. Helg Evanson says this needs to be done for all the New Testament papyri. They need to be investigated afresh by someone not part of the critical text concepts. Yes, absolutely. And I guess too, hopefully this will be a bit of a platform for people to go, well, Nick just did a study on it. Let's examine it. And people who are in the know, who know way more than I do, they can look at it and go, actually, I'm just seeing something new, afresh here. Actually, Nick pointed this out. He didn't know what it was, but I know what it is. You know, that's this. And so hopefully this will help more discussion on this. So let's go back to what Grenville and Hunt were saying. So obviously we went to Aminadab. That's right, we were looking to see whether there was an extra moo there. Let's just have a quick look. So you can tell that's a bit of a moo here, but I'm not sure that you can Agenecenton Aminadab. I don't think you can tell if there's a moo missing here. But I guess that's where we've got to almost write over the top of those. And, you know, I can do that. we have the technology. We can, we can write, or whoops, that's not a pen. Whoopsie, delete that. Here's a brush. I hardly ever do this, but we can do this type of thing, and write over it. So maybe I'll do that next time. I'll fill in the blanks. We can sort of go through, and I'll try with my mouse to, draw. But yeah, just even having I'll try and do it better than that. But even just having a basic sort of understanding, okay, that's where this letter goes, and we'll just see if it fits. That'd be cool. So I won't. So we went up to line number 9. So I won't go through these other ones. Boyce or Boaz. So they're looking at some of these things. Or Westcott and Hort are saying this, but the Textus Receptus is saying that, etc. The amount lost between this fragment and the preceding is uncertain. If our proposed restoration is correct, it would extend to 6 lines. The vestiges of a letter at the end of the line are blurred by any ink spot. Okay, so I won't go through all that until we've gone through and verified some things. And then we've got the last page here. And I'll make that a bit smaller. So listen to this. To sum up the results of the collation, the papyrus clearly belongs to the same class as the Sinaitic and Vatican codices, which has no Western or Syrian proclivities, except in the cases where it has a reading particular to itself alone. The papyri always agrees with those 2 manuscripts where they are in agreement. Where they differ, the papyrus does not consistently follow either of them, but is somewhat nearer to the Vatican Codex, especially in matters of spelling, though in one important case, to the Jesu Christu, it agrees with the Codex Sinaiticus. Okay, so this, back in the day, it's like we found this papyri sheet. It's the oldest papyri sheet that we've ever found. It's the oldest biblical document, and it agrees with Vaticanus and Sinaiticus. So these are huge claims, and these are claims that I want to challenge. I want to look at. I want to get Codex Sinaiticus and look at everything it's got. Is it agreeing with the corrections and things like that, or with the original of what's written there? And the same with Vaticanus, because the thing is, what's the printed edition of Vaticanus sometimes can be different to what's appearing on their website. Sometimes you can look at like Sinaiticus, you go to their webpage and you can just copy and paste the Greek that's written on the side there, but it's completely wrong. And like I was showing with the Granville Sharp issue, how Sinaiticus at 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 1, where it has God, our Savior, it doesn't have God there. It has Lord in Sinaiticus, but in the text down the bottom, it has God. So it's actually deceptive. And I know Elijah Hixson one time, because I was copying and pasting from there thinking that someone had done accurate collation work, and that's what it said. And I copied and pasted it one time and said, well, it says this. And he said, no, that's not what Sinaiticus said. I'm like, well, why does it have it on their website? Why doesn't someone fix this? And it's from just some dude, and it's wrong. It's got massive blunders in it. So we think that we're lining rulers up that are all equal, and it's like some of them are way out, and some of them. And the thing is, this is a blight on the academy for not really tidying these things up. They haven't got straight lines; they've got crooked lines, and so you sometimes. And I'm not saying this is the case here at all. It might be all straight, but we get Sinaiticus, we get Vaticanus, and we look at them, and it's like that's why I'm going through the papyri, looking at it and going, is that the actual letter? Is that what it's saying? Because this is the problem. People are saying, well, it says this, it's related to Vaticanus, and it's like, well, in what way? Let's have a good look at it. And as we can see, there is pushback by people like Herman Hoskier, who has made a list like this showing where it doesn't match up with Vaticanus. But then you look at the claims of Grenville and Hunt, and they're saying, okay, if it doesn't match up with Vaticanus, then it matches up with Sinaiticus. It's like, oh, okay. But then we see them having words like egenese, and saying, look, it doesn't have the movable nu, and it's like that's not even an issue. So do these guys know Greek, or are they able to just sort of decipher what the letters are, and that's about it? Because it seemed like that type of thing seems to more so reveal that either they've got a bias if they do know, or they, if they don't know, then what other errors, silly errors like that, are they making? Well, that's interesting. The Decatessares here is just iota and deca. That's interesting. Okay. So that's just a number. That's 14. Okay. So you got the number here, meaning it's like in the teens, and then you got the alpha, beta, gamma, delta, the fourth letter, 14. Okay. And with the line above it showing it's a number, but here you have it spelled out Decatessares, which is a big deal. Vaticanus doesn't have that. So when they're saying it's closer to Vaticanus, it's like, okay. So we're going to determine all that. And we're also going to look and see if it's a forgery, because one of the things is, when I read about these guys, and we will get more into these guys, we'll get to know who these guys are. Grenville and Hunt, they basically announced, we're going to Egypt to find Bible manuscripts. And the first thing they find, like 4 days later, is the oldest biblical papyri manuscript. And it's like to me, it's sort of like especially in those days, to go on the other side of the planet, or not really the other side of the planet, the other side of Europe, and they're going to Egypt from England. They're going all that way, and then they just sort of get off the boat and they're like, we're here for biblical manuscripts. And they're like, 2 days later, they're holding this book up, and then they're holding up another biblical manuscript, and then they find the Nag Hammadi. Maybe they knew, maybe someone tipped them off or whatever. But I don't know, just when something sounds a little bit too good to be true, it's sort of like, hey, I'm going off to prove that, evolution's true or something. And then like the next day I'm holding up a bone of a dinosaur. It's like, you just found that, like it just, I don't know. my alarm bells do go off with that. Maybe that's why I'm like, okay, well, we should examine all these. Are they fakes? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it ugly? Let's examine all of those things. Now, maybe I've got a link to Hoskia's work. I'm not sure. Okay, so Hermann Hoskia, Codex B and its allies. So I'm pretty sure that's online. We'll just have a quick look. Okay, a study and an indictment. So maybe I can type in Papyrus. Okay. Papyrus. There's only 2 mentions of Papyrus. But maybe it's written as P instead of Papyrus. And so it could be like P1. So maybe I'm better off writing Matthew 1. But it might have Matt 1. Yeah, it looks like he's got an abbreviation there. Wow. Okay, Matthew just comes up everywhere. So Matt dot 1. We'll see what that comes up with. Maybe I'll type in Grenville or Hunt. Okay. There's quite a lot of collation work done by Hoskia here. Okay, maybe we can just move to the top of the manuscript. Okay. Matthew 3. Okay, I might be able to grab actually it's on my one, Hoskia. Say something like this. Search for it. Mm-hmm. So it's not picking up Greek terms. Okay, so I probably am boring you to tears, so I will go back through this another time and find the exact spot. Maybe it's got an appendix at the back. It's a lot of info. This is just an appendix. Index of scriptural quotations. Trying to get to Matthew 1. Okay, here we go. Old Testament. Okay, here we go. 343. Okay, so Matthew 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 130. But 343 and 130. 343 and 130. Okay. Nearly there. Okay. I'll go 130. Which is not Matthew, it's in the middle of Luke. Middle of Luke, okay. So anyway, I think you can see where I'm going with this. We'll just continue on, and during the week I'll, even if you guys find something interesting about Papyri 1, like send me a message in Facebook or send me an email and I'll go through it. But apart from that, I think we're pretty much done with this study. For up to line number 9, we'll go through and we'll check some more information. We'll see if Aminadab has 2 moos. That was one of the claims by Hunt. So we'll go through all those claims and we'll see what is valid and what isn't. Yeah, interesting. So Help says this needs to be done for all the New Testament papyri. Yes. Bible highlighter stepping out. Hope to be back. So I am going to bail. But thanks for joining us, guys. God bless you. And we will see you in the next round.